Good evening. Welcome to PEG TV, Rutland Herald Aldermanic Candidate Forum. My name is Rich Clark. I'm a professor of political science at Vermont State University, Castleton, and I'll be the moderator tonight, sponsored again by PEG TV and Rutland Herald. As moderator, I'll be asking the questions of the candidates over the next 90 minutes. The question topics were generated by the editors of the Rutland Herald, although I am responsible for the question wording. These questions have not been shared with any of the candidates. For each question, candidates will have 90 seconds to respond. There is a timer in front of us all, and we'll click down 90 seconds. I will only interrupt if you have gone past your time. Our candidates for the Rutland City Board of Aldermen are Alderman Alex Adams, Jeffrey Bruce, former Alderman and State Assembly Representative Paul Clifford, also former Alderman and State Assembly Representative Larry Kupoli, former Alderman Tom Donahue, Kurt Esposito, Alderman William Billy Gillum, Gina Grove, Alderman John McCann, Alderwoman Kiana McClure, and Alderwoman Carrie Savage. One candidate, former Rutland Mayor David Allaire, was not able to join us tonight. So our candidates are seated in alphabetical order. Before the event, I drew a random number to determine who will go first. And so the first question will go to Tom Donahue. Yes. The lottery winner there. So to question one, to open, please tell the voters who you are, why you are running for this position, and focus on what you could bring to the Board of Aldermen.
Absolutely. Rich, thank you for doing this, because I wasn't sure how I was going to pull this off, actually, initially, and you stepping in, you're already doing a great job, so appreciate that. Why I'm running for the Board of Aldermen and who I am, it's a lot of people know a lot about me, and I've only got 90 seconds, so we definitely don't have time for all of that, but I do want to get into quite a bit about who I am. But first, I want to just mention that, the first question Gordon Druscillo asked me the other night from the Rutland Herald, they're doing some articles about our candidacies, and he asked me, how old are you? So I wanted to answer that question tonight, and I brought along my original skateboard. So this is how old I am. But frankly, the reason I got off the couch, and I'm not on the couch a lot, but I was compelled to run in conversation with my wife, Gail Donahue, made the decision to put my name forward because I have experience in some things, some areas that I think that would be of value to the city of Rutland right now. Public safety is a concern to me, and my campaign is twofold, increasing public safety and decreasing property taxes. And I know how to go about doing both. I have a track record for that. And my experience at City Hall, at the Chamber of Commerce, at Brock Community Action, and the 23 boards I've served on in this region will lend itself well to me helping solve those challenges and problems and opportunities here in the Rutland City. And I thank you so much for watching tonight.
Thank you. That's how to work a clock. All right. And next we'll go to Mr. Esposito.
Hi, I'm Kurt Esposito. I was born and raised here in Rutland, and I thought I had a unique perspective in that I lived away from Rutland for about 25 years and have returned recently, and wanted to participate and start helping the city that has given me so much.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right. And now we'll turn to Alderman Gillum.
Thank you very much, and thank you, PEG TV, for the opportunity. I'm running again because I have a lot of work that needs to get done, and we haven't finished yet. We have the TIF district, we have the hotel, we have neighborhood projects, we have housing developments that are on the way. So I want to usher those in. I have the experience, the leadership, and the vision to bring Rutland City to a better place to be, and a safer place to be. But we have some other issues. We need to find the balance. We need to figure out how to keep taxes down, but meanwhile find revenue to come in and support these new projects and being a partner with the new developers coming in to help the city of Rutland build their tax base. That's really the important part, is the balance. We need to have balance to the city, and I have that experience dealing with budgets. I come from the business sector, retired now, and I have time to make things happen in the city of Rutland. It's very important that we work together, make sure our neighborhoods are safe, affordable community, fiscal responsibility, and keeping the tax rates down as low as possible. And I thank you very much.
Great. And, sorry, Mrs. Grove.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I'm Gina Grove. I was born and raised in Annapolis, Maryland, and I lived there until 2023 when my husband, Eddie Grove, and our two dogs, Zap and Dobby, moved to Rutland in August of 2023. And I am so grateful to this Rutland community. I lived somewhere for 31 years of my life, and I never experienced the sense of community that I've experienced here in Rutland. And even from the time that my husband and I originally moved here, we walked through downtown, and from where we are today, we've seen that, the revitalization of Rutland in the downtown area. And I simply want to be a part of that. I want to be a positive community member, and I want to be have a hand in what Rutland can be. I decided to run as an alderman candidate because I believe that my experience as a nonprofit professional, also working with 5 years prior to that in the small business sector, it can lend a lot of ideas. I have a perspective as a person who relocated here, and I'm very passionate about showing other people why Rutland is a wonderful place to live. Because if you look online, and I only made my decision based on what I see online, I would have gone with what I saw online. I probably wouldn't have moved here, and that is not the case. Rutland is a wonderful community, and I'm inspired to help bring new residents here, and also that would in turn would help lower our tax burden on the taxpayers and other opportunities that can go beyond there.
Thank you. And at any point, if anybody needs a question repeated, please don't hesitate to ask. Alderman McCann.
Thank you, Rich, and thanks to PEG TV and the Herald for putting this on. For those who don't know me, I'm John McCann. I currently serve on the Rutland City Board of Aldermen, and I'm running for my sophomore term. As Billy said, there's a lot of things we've been working on that I'd like to continue working on. Having 2 years isn't a lot of time to really get involved in things, but it's a lot of time to get a quick touch on a lot of things that the city is working on. I'm a Green Mountain College graduate. I graduated in 2005. As candidate Esposito mentioned, moved away for a number of years, got some experience in the western part of the United States, moved back here in 2020. My partner and I bought a house on Lincoln Avenue, real close to downtown, and we've fallen in love with the city. We walk downtown and walk and bike as much as we can. I've got 15 years of experience in the environmental sciences, working collaboratively in public land management. I think that's a unique perspective that I can bring to the board. And then a new development for me in terms of a perspective I can bring. In December, my partner and I welcomed our first child. Shout out to Rutland Regional Medical Center and the team over there for the great work they did helping us bring that child in to the world. And now I've got the added responsibility with the decisions I make of making sure this city works for me as someone raising a child here for the next decade or two, at least.
Great, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Alderwoman McClure.
Thank you, Rich. Good evening, everybody. My name is Kiana McClure. You may recognize the pink from my blazer from the pink from my signs that you may see across Rutland City. But I'm not here to talk about fashion tonight. I'm here to talk about making history. I am the youngest candidate to ever run for re-election here in Rutland City. I am 25 years old. For those keeping track in the room tonight, I am 15 years younger than the second youngest candidate here, and I am 50 years younger than the oldest candidate here. So it's quite a difference. I bring to the table the experience of a young person living and working in what will be, I like to hope, a 15-minute city, things that are walkable, easy to access. I bring forward the experience of a hybrid employee. I work in the tech industry, and I have the great privilege of having an office in downtown Rutland, as well as an apartment in downtown Rutland, and getting to work from either. What I also bring to the table, which I feel is the most valuable piece of experience, is I am the only person sitting at the table right now, as far as I am aware, who is a renter. So while we sit here tonight and we talk about what we have done and what we continue to do and how we will advocate for the taxpayer, I think it is important we keep in mind we represent that 40% of the community here in Rutland City that does not own property, that lives here, that rents here, and is still affected by the financial burden that a homeowner might still be affected by. I am happy to be here, a little bit nervous, and I look forward to being here with the rest of you for the rest of the night. So thank you.
Thank you. And Alderwoman Savage.
Hi, my name is Carrie Savage, and I'm just finishing up my second term as alderman. I am a lifelong, many-generation Rutlander, and while I don't often enjoy hearing myself talk or go on, what I do bring to the Board of Aldermen is that razor's edge of walking between being fiscally responsible, closely looking at all of the things that come before us, and weighing who they're going to affect, and looking at everything that we legislate on from every different angle. I'm very proud of the work that we've done in these past years, making sure that we are paying off our debt earlier, that is on our city pension. The TIF district is incredibly important to get across the finish line. I will say that was an electric moment for me when we first signed that initial, yes, we're going to do the TIF district, and it really inspired me to run this time so we can get these things finished. And we've got a great body of candidates to choose from. I don't think you can go wrong all the way around, and I would like to thank all of them for running. Thank you, Rich, and thank you, PEG TV and Rutland Herald, too, for this opportunity.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm going to move across the room here. Alderman Adams.
Hi, my name is Alex Adams. I grew up in Rutland City. I moved away after high school, floated around a bit for years, and then came back. I've lived a real life. It hasn't been the cleanest. I've been through a lot of ups and downs, and those ups and downs have given me a lot of perspective that I bring to Rutland in order to bring us into the future and give us the best chance going forward. I've seen a lot of the problems that the people in Rutland have seen, and I approach every problem that comes to the board with a level of pragmatism that I think is rare. I do a lot of work and I do a lot of research to be sure that I know what I'm talking about, to be sure that I'm doing the best I can for the people that I represent, because I take that responsibility very seriously. And I look forward to continuing to serve the city of Rutland.
Great, thank you. Mr. Bruce.
Hi, and it's nice to see you again, Rich. I don't
Likewise.
think I've seen you since I graduated, so it's good to see you.
You all leave us.
Well, my name's Jeff Bruce. I am a Rutland City resident, of course. I moved here in 2019. I'm not a Rutland native per se, but grew up in Castleton and Fairhaven, and always, came to Rutland as more of a shopping trip or, something going on. But in my teen years, came here quite often with a band and got to know a lot of people in Rutland and really got to know the city better, and have really seen ever since then just how incredibly diverse the city really is, even though we don't look it, we are. And since moving here in 2019, I've seen incredible growth that really has inspired me, and that's part of the reason why I chose to run. And I hope to be a part of that and to continue the good work that I've seen, and hope to make an impact on some other things that do need to be addressed.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clifford.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you to PEG TV and the Rutland Herald. One of the things that I believe that I can bring to the board is experience. I was elected back in 1988, and I served terms between 1988 and 1993. I got off the board for a little while for a couple of years to go into private business. Got back on the board in 1997, and then after that I was a public works director, and also I was the street division supervisor for the Department of Public Works. After that, I got back into some more private business and was elected back to the Board of Aldermen in 2018. Served 2 terms there. From there, I went to the Vermont Legislature for 2 years, and I didn't really like it. I mean, I thought I would. It's something I always wanted to do, but I thought my experience and my time was better served at a local level. So that's what I chose to get back into. And that's about it. But while I'm here, I would like to say happy anniversary to Dave Allaire and his wife Audrey, 42 years.
Thank you. And anchoring the first question there, Mr. Capoli.
Well, thank you very much, PEG TV, Rutland Herald. Rich, thank you for being here. It's nice to see you again. Larry Coopoli from Rutland City, of course. I've lived here all my life. I'll remark to Kiana's being the youngest one in here, I perhaps will be the oldest. If you read the Rutland Herald, when my good friend puts his article together, the first question he asked me was, how old are you? I think he might have asked some of the other candidates here. But I've been a lifelong resident of Rutland, born here, grew up here, educated here, and I've had a great life. Rutland has been unique in many, many ways to let me go forward and be a part of a lot of different things. So I did serve 2 years, or 2 terms on the Board of Aldermen, or a term and a half. I was appointed by then Mayor Allaire, and I ran again for a 1-year term. I got off to do some other things, little travel, little this, little of that. And I also served for 10 years in the legislature, which was a real honor to serve the city of Rutland, and it was great. So I think I'm well prepared to serve on the Board of Aldermen again.
Thank you. An excellent use of the clock there. We'll start our next question with Mr. Esposito. What, in your assessment, is the greatest challenge facing the city of Rutland today, and how should the Board of Aldermen address that challenge?
I would say that the greatest issue that's facing the city now is public safety, crime. The neighborhood that I live in, which is commonly referred to as the Gut, is a neighborhood that really has taken a turn for the worse, especially since I've been back in town. And watching the elderly residents in the neighborhood have to suffer through the amount of crime that's happening on the streets is something that I want to address on the board should I be elected.
Great. Thank you. Alderman Gillum?
Thank you. Well, there's a lot of things that we need to do. First of all, we need to protect the neighborhoods. Second of all, we got to get development in place. And third, we need to deal with crime, as Mr. Esposito's talked about. Those are the 3 stools for the city that we need to work on in the next 2 years. It's going to be very important that we work on those equally. We need to work with the department heads. We need to work with the cops. We need to work with the building inspectors. We have a lot of issues with absentee landlords, especially in my neighborhood on Cleveland Avenue area. We need to put the hammer down on some of these people who are not taking care of their properties. And I think those are going to be the issues coming up. And lastly, we got to do this with balance. That's the key thing here. We got to keep the tax rate here so we can afford to live here, but then we got to find new revenue and new money sources to bring in the development, to bring the tax base in so it has relief for the existing taxpayers who are there now.
Thank you. Mrs. Grove?
Thank you, Rich. I would say that I believe the biggest issue for Rutland right now is the residents and the need for new residents. I would also agree with Alderman Gillum that we need to also keep that balance because Rutlanders and native Rutlanders and people who live here that might be in a more poverty area still deserve to live here and shouldn't be outpriced of their neighborhoods. Our adjacency to Killington is fantastic, and I think we need to take more advantage of that and have that kind of come down the mountain a bit. But again, we don't want Rutland to become Park City or Sedona or Vail or any of these other mountain towns or neighboring mountain towns that suddenly become so attractive that they become so exceedingly expensive. And I think adding additional residents to the city will then help, again, alleviate that tax base. And then that leads into all of our other things that are really important, such as public safety, such as beautification of downtown, such as housing. Increasing the residents, and whether it's people from other parts of Vermont, from other states, hopefully families, that will also help our schools, increase our student population. And again, it's all connected to the funds, and I think new residents will truly help alleviate that.
Great, thank you. Alderman McCann?
Thank you. So I think it's our reputation. We have a reputation that we're losing population, that we have drug problems, we have crime problems, that Rutland is not a place worth moving to or staying in. I don't want to say that we don't have issues, but I think those are issues that we are working on addressing, and we need to flip the script by putting them in perspective. You know, housing is tight, but it's not as tight or as expensive as other places in the region. We do have our own, flavor of issues with crime and drugs and homelessness, but that's not unique to us. And if you put it in the perspective of other places, Rutland City is still a really great place to live, work, and play. When I've got family visiting from out of state, they comment on how clean and how safe and how great a little city this actually is. And I think if we can continue to work positively on the issues that we do have, and work in a creative, constructive way to show people that Rutland is not defined by its negatives, that we do have good things going for us. We can work to retain people in our city, and we can work to attract people to our city. As someone mentioned earlier, by increasing our population, we can spread the burden of municipal costs and address those tax concerns that people have as well.
Good, thank you very much. Alderwoman McClure.
Thank you, Rich. When we're talking about the biggest problem that Rutland City faces right now, it is not a singular problem. Rather, it is a threefold one. You have addiction, you have housing, and you have crime. Those three things do not exist within a vacuum of themselves. Over the last 2 years, I have spent a lot of time working as the co-chair of Project Vision with Rutland City Police. I've worked very, very closely with Commander Prouty. I've worked very closely with the Department of Health and Human Services. And what keeps coming to the forefront of these conversations is not, how can we do this? How can we stop this? It's, how can we help this person? What can we do to bridge the gaps here? I have discussed so many different strategies within our committees with the amazing change makers who are a part of Project Vision, and these strategies are almost always recovery first and housing first. We cannot combat the problem that we have with addiction. We cannot combat the problems we have with crime, with Band-Aid solutions. What we need to do is address the root causes of these problems. And there is documented sociological strategies that we can use as a community to help make things better for the people who are the most vulnerable. Hurt people hurt people. And what we need to do is support people. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Savage.
Thank you. Right now, Rutland is set to, the whole Rutland County is set to take off. I travel around the state a lot, and looking at Rutland, every time I come in with fresh eyes, I see, growth going up, buildings being rehabbed in the gut, in what we affectionately call the gut. I love our neighborhoods. And with what's happening with regional planning and with the mountain and with our TIF district, we are just ready to take off. We have a beautiful community. We have people that are willing and ready to help, to pitch in anytime, whether it's with blood donation or with Project Vision. We really are ready to set the standard for the state of Vermont about a community that really comes together and puts our best foot forward and isn't afraid of growth and supports, but keeps an eye on making sure that we are staying affordable and taking care of our residents. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, and greatest challenge, Alderman Adams.
I think our greatest challenge as a community is the way we approach problems and the lack of togetherness that we approach them with currently. I think we need to stop looking at bullet points for the things that are plaguing the city, the things that are hurting us, and start making bullet points of the things that we have in common and the things that are working, so that we can start to root out some of those things that aren't working for all of us. I think that national and state politics have found their way down to our local community and turned us against each other. I don't think it has any place here. I don't think it belongs here. Being on the Board of Aldermen isn't about making big sweeping decisions that impact crises in the area. It's about getting together as a group, communicating effectively, working towards the best solution that you can with the information that you have in front of you. I mean, I know that's not the most exciting headline for what I'm going to solve in my next term, but I mean, really, it's just about sitting down with the people that you care about and doing what we're all here for and making Rutland a better place.
Thank you. Mr. Bruce?
Yeah. So as far as my concerns go, I mean, there's been a lot of great points made by the people in front of me. I would say that one of the main reasons I decided to run was the housing crisis. Back in 2019, when we were looking to move, because my wife and I were expecting our first child. We were living with a friend at the time, and it didn't make sense to continue living there. We needed our own private space, and it took quite some time to find a spot. It was, limited pickings. It didn't help that we had a dog, but it was still limited pickings for our price range. And when we did finally land a spot, it was probably the highest it could be in our price range. And I agree with Alderwoman Savage that I think this area is about to, kick off. I think there's a lot of exciting things here. There's great activities, there's great spaces outdoors to do things, there's great local businesses, but we need to address the housing crisis too, so people have a chance to stay here. And being another young person, I'm 32, with a young family, I got 2 under 5. We want to make sure that we bring in these young people, these young families, to continue to grow and diversify Rutland. And that's what I find to be the most pressing for me.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Clifford?
Thank you, Rich. I do agree that there are probably several things to really get going. One of them, I do agree with Jeffrey as far as the housing goes. I think that once if we have housing, working with people like Habitat for Humanity, other areas like landlords, developers, once you have the housing, and people can come here and have a place to live, and people know that, and the word gets out about that, you'll have more opportunities for people to work and get jobs. I know that like Rutland Hospital, they're always looking for people, doctors, nurses, always looking, but once they get them here, they don't hang on to them very long because they don't have any place to live. But I would think that housing would be the number one thing.
Great. Thank you very much. Mr. Kupali?
Well, I think Rutland City probably will not be what it was as a kid growing up in town. Downtown was jam-packed with people every Friday and Saturday. Some of you may not have been born then, or maybe were little children, but Rutland was a very vibrant community. Housing wasn't a problem back in the day. Everyone had their house, and where they were living in an apartment. But the housing issue is very complex. There are developers who can't build affordable housing. It's not in the plan. There are a multitude of units that are off the grid. People are not renting their apartments for one reason or another. But it's a serious issue as brought up. I've talked to physicians, I talked to people at the hospital, recruiters. We don't have the places for these people to shop and do downtown stuff. And, if we can get things, the TIF district going and things like that, then we'll make it happen. I mean, Rutland can be a vibrant city again.
Good. Thank you very much. And lastly, Mr. Donahue?
Thanks, Rich. Quite frankly, as I said earlier, my campaign has been about, I guess I'm on camera 1 now. My campaign has been about public safety and decreasing property tax. I think we'll have a chance to talk about decreased property tax, so I'm going to focus on public safety. And it's one of the things that got me off the couch, one of the reasons that I'm running, quite frankly. You know, the state's attorney was quoted, talk about being things online. This is online. Drugs and crimes are becoming too common in Rutland. We had shootings on Cherry Street, Elm Street, on Christmas Eve, Hopkins Street, on New Year's Eve, School Street. And then, you know, the shooting on Library Avenue, which is a Friday afternoon, when they had to lock down the intermediate school. They had to lock down the middle school. We had a shooting in broad daylight in the afternoon. It was a drive-by shooting on State Street that killed a man right there right near a school bus stop. I mean, when is enough on this? So one of the things we got to do to get serious, besides fixing the laws in Montpelier, which are happening, is do the same thing down here and take our own steps to making sure that we have the proper enforcement going on in this community that provides a safe place to live, work, and do business. And one of those things is getting a contract with our Rutland City Police Department. Right now, under the current contract,
I'm gonna cut you off here, but we'll have time to come back. I'm hoping there. Thank you. The next question is going to Alderman Gillum to start. What role does the Board of Aldermen play in economic development for the city? Is there anything the board could do or should be doing to make the city's economy more vibrant?
Actually, I'm glad you asked that question because I happen to be in a very unique situation. I am on the TIF Task Force Committee, and that's a role that two board members, Sharon Davis and myself, are represented on that committee. The president of the board is also on that group. Our job was to do all the paperwork to get the TIF district ready. That is a long series of steps that we had to do to get that TIF district ready to go. And a lot of people don't see that background work that has to happen to all these development projects. Last night, we just approved the development letter of understanding last night for the developers in the city on our understanding what we're going to be doing, our role and their role on the hotel project. And that is paperwork we're getting ready for the TIF district presentation next week with VIPI when they come down and do the inspection. Obviously, we have to go through the state process, but that's only one piece that the Board of Aldermen does. All the committees, the standing committees, do a lot of work with sewer and water, roads, sidewalks. We do a lot of stuff with recreation. All the standing committees have their work to do, and that's what the Board of Aldermen does, set policies, set budgets. And that's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And that's all done in balance.
Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Grove?
Would you mind repeating the question?
Absolutely,
please, Rich?
yes. So I was asking, what role does the Board of Aldermen play in economic development for the city? Is there anything the board could or should be doing to make the city's economy more vibrant?
Thank you, Rich. I'm not going to pretend to know exactly what all of the Board of Aldermen does in all its capacities, having not been on the board yet. However, I do understand that they help regulate how money's spent, especially obviously the taxpayers. And so that money needs to be spent responsibly and needs to be spent in a way that encourages economic development. And being a board member on CEDAR and a part of their business development committee, it's been a privilege to have a deeper understanding from that perspective of how the city plays a role in uplifting the residents and the economy. Anything from, of course, as all the committees that Alderman Gillum mentioned, when it comes, the tax base has a role to play in every part of the city, whether it's from the roads and the sidewalks to the buildings to some of the events that that might be contributed by the tax base that bring visitors to our city. And I think that's something where we can improve. I think the collaboration with the Whoopie Pie Festival has been such a success that things like that, showing that Rutland does have that positive reputation. We can be an area that attracts not only new residents, but encourages our current residents to believe in Rutland again. And I think continuing those community collaborations is something that the board really should continue to focus on.
Thank you. Alderman McCann.
Thank you. I think the board's role is a mix of support, providing sideboards so that we don't get too off track and develop things that aren't going to be sustainable, but then also getting out of the way. I don't want to see, business or development come to the city with good ideas, with things that are going to benefit the community, and us get caught up in the weeds of going back and forth and trying to find things that are going to be little red flags that we don't want to make mountains out of molehills. We want to see development move forward. But we need to do it smart. And one of the things that I've been able to be involved with is with the Rutland City Planning Commission. They're working on updating the city's zoning bylaws. That's providing guidelines on where we can see development of certain types, what sorts of constraints we want to put on it to allow for our community, our neighborhoods to maintain their character, but allow for development. And I think that's going to be a good framework moving forward. In terms of supporting businesses, we've got the Business Incentive Assistance Program. I think that's great for supporting local businesses, small businesses, rather than trying to court large-scale chains all the time. When we support local businesses, more of that money stays in our community. And then in terms of getting out of the way or supporting as well, keeping up with our ordinances. A lot of that language has been written historically. If we need to update that to support future economic development, we should be able to do that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Alderwoman McClure?
Thank you, Rich. When discussing what the city's role is in economic development, we would be remiss not to mention the Business Incentive Assistance Program, much like Alderman McCann already did. This program is funded by city dollars. These are loans and grants that are given out by the Board of Aldermen, facilitated by the RRA. Shout out to Barbie Spalding for all of her hard work that she does working with these small business owners looking to create and expand within our community. But this is one of the city's biggest roles in economic development, in my opinion, because we are supporting our local people who are looking to create, looking to build, looking to uplift our community and keep those dollars local. In the last 2 years, as far as I can count, a rough estimate, we've approved almost 10 of those permits, of those grants within the downtown alone. That's even more across the city. It is an amazing piece that the city can use and help move people forward. We don't need another super Walmart, but what we do need are more mom and pop shops and keeping those dollars local. And it's our responsibility to ensure that we're creating a city where those small businesses can thrive.
Thank you. Alderwoman Savage?
Thank you. It's really the board's responsibility to work effectively with our partners, whether it's the Rutland Redevelopment Authority and the Chamber of Commerce, on things that bring both businesses and people into our city, where they are spending money, where we're earning that 1% sales tax, which helps support which helps support our budget and helps take relief burdens from the taxpayer. And what we have to do is carefully weigh what our vision is for the city going forward and support those projects and those partners that are helping us enact that vision and make it a reality for our citizens.
Great, thank you. Economic development, Alderman Adams?
Yeah, I don't like the buy-app loans. I don't like what they've become. I don't. I think that as a local government, we should be doing as much as possible to butt out of the economic climate of the area. Provide the pathway, provide information to those interested, but then get out of the way. I think recently Alderman Whitcomb, the most confident man ever to wear New Balance, was critical of one because of his concerns that it couldn't compete with Walmart being nearby. And I think that if we're going to act like a lender in that way, that we need to be more critical of what we're lending money to ensure that our investment is returned. But I'm a capitalist. I think that if businesses are going to stand, they need to stand on their own. And I think we need to let Adam Smith's invisible hand take it away and provide us with the things that we need to do, or that we need. Let the economy provide us with the things that we need, rather than trying to force them with the government. Because I think right now, what we end up doing is funding things in different direction. And like I said, if business isn't going to stand on its own, it's just not going to stand. And if you fund businesses so far in order to keep them around that you outweigh all the benefit of having that business in the first place, I mean, then what are you doing? You're just involving yourself in something that the government doesn't involve or belong in.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Bruce.
Thank you. So as far as it goes, and I'll kind of echo Gina on this one, I can't say that I really know because I've never served. But as far as what I believe, I do believe that the Board of Aldermen does have a crucial role in providing information and, as Alderman McCann said, guide rails to make sure that things kind of go smoothly. I do agree, though, that we need to be fiscally responsible with this. We can't just, dish out money and make it a burden on taxpayers. But I've seen it, again, in our area. We have an incredible growing economic region. We have lots of small businesses popping up. We have great restaurants. We have great cafes. The Paramount is bringing in great shows. We have lots of things going on in this area, and I think that it behooves us on the board, not that I am, but it would behoove us to continue to support these and to give all of the applicable help that we could to get things off the ground and rolling to make Rutland even more vibrant.
Great, thank you. Mr. Clifford?
Repeat that question, please,
I'd
Rich.
be happy to, yes. What role does the Board of Aldermen play in economic development for the city? And is there anything the board could or should be doing to make the city's economy more vibrant?
Well, I think the board's role is to, to work with any developers that come in. People come in and like say the proposed hotel downtown. Work with them the best we can, not give away the farm, but help them, with if there's perhaps a permitting process or some kind of tax stabilization. But the board's job is to set policy and to protect the taxpayers. So I would just say, you take it as it comes and deal with it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Copley?
I think the board distinctly has an effect on what happens in the city. And I will say that some of the tax issues do not come from the Rutland City Board of Aldermen. The state is always proposing a way to collect new taxes and whatever. The real issue is the demographics. Businesses that would like to come to Rutland, they search it out. They'll take a year or two to look at demographics before they will make decisions on whether they're going to come here and be able to do and be successful in their business. So the Board of Aldermen, I think, really need to take a hard look at what our demographics are and try and work to provide the housing, try and work to provide incentive, try and work to make our downtown safe, to make Rutland City a better place to live.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. Donahue?
Yeah, so one of the first things I want to talk about is getting back to public safety. I think we have the cart before the horse when it comes to economic development in the city of Rutland. I was the economic development director for the city of Rutland. It was a combination, the position was entitled Community Development Director. It was a combination of city planner and economic development director. And I know what it takes to bring a business in here. I brought in Walmart originally. It's come full circle now. I'm going to be uniquely qualified to, if elected to the board, to actually be able to remarket that space along with the owners, of course, Brixmore, and fill that space in downtown Rutland because it's going to create a significant void. We do need to focus on that upcoming challenge. Hopefully we'll be also looking at sort of a Zamias 2 downtown development agreement. But having said that, I recruited other things in Rutland, like the restaurant that used to be in the Asa Bloomer building that everybody says I wish was back, like Price Chopper Supermarket, like Vermont Country Store. I worked personally on all these projects and brought them to Rutland. I know how to do it. I've got the experience. But one of the things that is an ace in our hand is the fact that we have local zoning, we have subdivision regulations, we have a master plan, and we have water and sewer capacity. And those give us an advantage when marketing ourselves to business because they can save a business developer time and money and predictability in the process. And we should be definitely focusing on getting public safety, followed by promoting ourselves as a place that can easily get through the permit process quickly.
Thank you. And lastly, Mr. Esposito.
I'm also not going to pretend to understand fully the role of the board in economic development, given that I haven't served either. However, I do believe there's a role for the board to seek out and encourage business to come to Rutland. There are a number of properties around the city that I've been looking at it since I came home that I believe we could make use of and allow these businesses or industries to come in and perhaps bring along with them jobs that pay real salaries with real benefits. That seems to be an issue here. Rutland has become a service industry town, and it's difficult to work here. I can tell you that coming back from being away for so long and then attempting to find a job in the city was rather difficult. So I think that the economic development focus has to be on finding industries that would fit with the city and in turn help us revitalize some of the blighted properties that are around town.
Excellent, thank you. So we're about halfway in to this tonight. Start the next question with Mrs. Grove. Homelessness, perennial problem in state and locally. What can the city do to better meet the needs of its unhoused population?
Thank you. From what I understand, with the population of those experiencing homelessness, the city prior to COVID was seeing about 80 to maybe let's call it 125 individuals experiencing homelessness within the city at any given point. I believe since COVID, those numbers maybe skyrocketed up to 800, and I believe they're now around 600, if I have my information correct. I didn't write it in stone. I actually served on a board when I was living in Maryland for a nonprofit that was for those experiencing homelessness. My own father, I know, actually was homeless for a period of time. These issues are multifaceted. I don't think anyone chooses that lifestyle and saying that's how I want to live my life for the rest of my days. And I believe that a number of these individuals, it's rooted in mental health, and I'll use my own father as an example. He was, he ended up passing away almost a decade ago from an overdose, but we realized after his death that he was probably undiagnosed bipolar. And had he received the proper care and actually received the proper treatments, he probably would have gone on to live a stable life. And I think there's a lot of individuals in our community who are in those similar circumstances. They need the assistance from mental health or substance abuse, and they can get on the right track. So we need to have those stepping stones in order to really allow them to succeed, not just live in poverty and then get to the next step, but to truly thrive.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think it's any secret that Rutland City and Rutland Town were disproportionately burdened based on the policies that came about as a response to the COVID pandemic. The intent was good, was to ensure that people had a place to be inside, but the way that program worked with providing funding to hotel owners who were willing to accept the vouchers, it kind of came to a head here in our area, increased that population, as Gina mentioned, and put demands on the services that would be required to provide those people a better quality of life that we just didn't have the capacity to handle here. It would have been great if that program had sent funding to the local municipalities along with the hotels so that those municipalities could have ramped up their own services, but that didn't happen, and here we are. If there was any way to move forward and try to get folks who migrated here because of the availability of the hotel rooms and the program to spread that burden back out to neighboring communities or some of the communities where they had come from, I think that would be great. But we also need to look at prevention. Housing has been talked about as one of the major issues here. If we can bring more housing online, help with some of the cost of housing, it will help make housing more available and more sustainable for more people in our community, and will help prevent us from adding more people to that population of people struggling with homelessness.
Thank you. Alderwoman McClure?
Thank you, Rich. What Rutland City can do to help better meet the needs of those who, in our community who are unhoused is to use the partnerships that we already have with the state to hold the state accountable for itself. Rutland did not get into this situation on our own. Rutland City did not choose to take on 100 plus, 200 plus people that our community could not support with the infrastructure that we had. But if we leverage what we have now and we work closely with the people we have been working with over the last 2 years to recover from these COVID high numbers, we will find success. It is prevention, it is mental health care, it is physical health care, and it's also holding the legislature accountable and ensuring that we have a board here that exists of people who are willing to have the hard conversations, who are willing to sit down and say, okay, here's where we are, where do we need to be, and what do we need to do to get there? Because it's not fair to all of these people in Rutland City, be they homeowners, tax-paying residents who are housed, or individuals who are unhoused, living in hotels, living in tents, living on the street. What we have now isn't fair, it's not equitable, and it's not right. And we need to hold the state accountable to make sure we get back to a position that is equitable. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Savage.
Thank
Same
you.
question.
Yeah, I agree with Alderman McCann that we are now in a situation due to COVID, due to the state's policies, where we still have a very large number of people who are unhoused in the state. We do have wonderful partnerships with Project Vision, with some of the people that are rehabbing properties, putting in some market rate and affordable housing into the properties that they are rehabbing, but there's always going to be more to do. We do need to hold the state accountable where we can have those wraparound supportive services of mental health, of making sure that they that the people that need to are able to seek out health care, and making sure that the children that are also unhoused have the ability to get to school and have the supports that they need at school. It's still a very pressing and large issue, and it's still going to take a lot of time and cooperation to work itself out. But we just got to keep going in the direction we're going.
Thank you. All right, what can the city do to better meet the needs of its unhoused population? Alderman Adams.
Homelessness, addiction, and mental health issues are all significant, and I wouldn't downplay them, ever. I've worked through all three. I still work through several. And I don't think it's the government's responsibility. I don't think the local government's equipped to handle it. I think the state and federal governments have proven that they're notoriously terrible at it. And I think that in Vermont, we've always done a really great job of taking care of our neighbors, of taking care of our own, of walking next door and checking on your older neighbors when the weather's cold. I don't think that the best approach is to tax everybody more and strain all those tax dollars through the government bureaucracy and try to get 20% back to what we actually want to do. I think we all need to be human beings. We all need to take care of each other, and the government is not in a position to tell us how to do that. And I'm growing increasingly frustrated being somebody that's out there holding my hand out and having politicians tell me I'm the heartless one for not wanting to spend taxpayer dollars. So I think that everybody should do everything that they're willing to do within their level of compassion to help this problem.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bruce, same question.
Thank you. As far as it goes for homelessness, I agree with Alderwoman McClure that this issue in Rutland especially has been compounded by the state of Vermont and their voucher system. I think in the end, though, to look at this issue, we have to be compassionate. As I've heard from others before, we're talking about human beings who are down on their luck, who may be suffering from mental illness or, whatever it may be. It's not an excuse. It's just the situation. So I firmly believe that to combat the homelessness that we see here, we need to continue to offer support to these people. We need to be compassionate, as I said. We need to ensure that, as I heard somebody else say before, I'm sorry, I don't know who said it, but we need to make sure that especially children are looked after, that they're getting to school, that they're getting what they need, because they're so impressionable and they're in such a important time of their life where things are just, neurons are starting to connect and things are starting to happen, and, they're just the most in the wind on this, they just need help. So I think compassion is what we need to do, but we also need to take a look at the state and tell them that we need assistance with the mess that they've created.
Thank you. Mr. Clifford?
Well, I got to tell you, I think Alderman Adams hit it on the head. I couldn't agree more. But as far as the Board of Aldermen goes, I think we have an obligation to work with those different entities, such as Turning Point, Rutland Mental Health, the housing coalitions, to assist them in whatever way we could, as a board or as city government goes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Copeland?
Well, the powers that be at Montpelier just added another $14 million to the Budget Adjustment Act to house people in hotels again, unlimited time span. I don't agree with that. I think that one of the things that we're really missing here, and it's been said, services, mental health. We have an unusual amount of drug traffic in the city of Rutland, and a lot of it happens to be in some of the hotels, as we've seen with police reports. And I have to tell you, I'm very concerned about our children living in hotels and going to school. They're not being taken care of. They're living in horrible conditions, and their mental health is at stake growing up in this kind of a community. So, is there an answer to it? We're not going to find housing for all of these people, I'm afraid. I think that's a dream. We have to make sure that they're safe, and I'm not sure what the answer is, but hotels are not the answer.
Thank you. Mr. Donahue?
Yeah, so I work with the homeless every day of the week. My staff, we work with the homeless every day of the week at Brock Community Action. And so I'm quite familiar with the issue here in Rutland County. And I know the state actually is doing some things that are going to make a difference here in Rutland County that I'm on board with. But I want to say out loud that, kicking the can down the road with extending the hotel stays is not the answer. Right now, they've allocated $1.8 million in the current legislature to go from April 1st now to July 1st. This program should have ended when the pandemic ended. When the President of the United States declared the pandemic over, we should have ended this hotel program. And the reason I say that is because I'm a huge advocate for the homeless, and I believe that they should all be treated with respect and dignity. And the hotels are not a respectful place and a dignified place. They're warehoused, and they're filthy, and they're drug-ridden, and there are children there. And there's people with medical vulnerabilities and the aged. There's some really good people that don't have housing right now that we need to be helping. But the motels are not the answer. The answer is continuing to create more family shelters, creating what we call congregate shelters, like the Open Door Mission, which has done a fabulous job. When my old friend John Casarino ran it, it was the answer. Now we've grown to the point where we need more than that. I just want to say one last thing, that people have moved here from out of state and are using these rooms. People have been transferred from around Vermont and are using these rooms. And lastly, we have our own homeless population, and that's what we need to be taken care of.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. Esposito?
Mr. Clifford stole my answer, but I'm going to give it anyway. I would agree with Alderman Adams in this respect that I don't think government has a place in paying for housing. that we can't spend every problem away. However, I would then agree with Mr. Donahue had just mentioned in saying that we do, as a community, have an obligation to the people in our city that need help. And that help can come in different ways other than just continuing to float money, good money after bad, and attempting to alleviate the problem by essentially ignoring it. Homelessness is a terrible problem, and having experienced mental health issues myself, I can understand the need for mental health care, but government does not belong in this situation.
Thank you. And lastly, Alderman Gillum.
Thank you. I think we need a little history lesson here. Back in the 40s and 30s, we used to have the overseer of the poor, and we had the poor farm, where people who needed some help would go to the poor farm. They were housed, the children were taken care of, they got teachers in there, they've got doctors in there to take care of them, they took care of their own food, grew their own food, and then they trained them for jobs and put people back to work, build their pride back up. Well, you know what? I think we need to do a little bit of that again. I think we need to go back to that system, and the people who are homeless need to come halfway with us, okay? They need to take the step to correct their situation. Get the mental health services around there, get the drug people who deal with folks who are having abuse issues around them. We need to get the job people in there to help them build jobs. Meanwhile, we need to feed them and take care of their health needs at the same time. But the hotel system is not working, okay? That warehousing people is not the answer. We need to find a way where we can come to the middle and get people out of their situation and stop sending the whole state to Rutland, Vermont. Plus, we've lost a lot of tax base. We got the Holiday Inn sitting down there. I know it's not Rutland City, but it is part of the hospitality industry. We've lost 150 rooms and a huge function facility that brings revenue in the city. So we need to sit down and take a little bit of history and put some plans together and work and get people out of their situation and move them out and not continue to maintain them.
Thank you. This may seem redundant. I know many of you have hit on this question, but it might that might indicate how important it is. I want to have you all address the perception that Rutland is riddled with violent and property crimes, that it's a persistent problem, and address it. What can the Board of Aldermen do to address crime and the perception that many have of Rutland? And we'll start with Alderman McCann.
Thank you. It's a difficult question, obviously. Perhaps the easiest answer would be everything we've said all night. It's so interrelated with economic development, with housing, with services, and again, coming back to that idea of our reputation. Do we have issues that we need to address and continue some of the steps that we've been taking? Absolutely. Is Rutland as bad as some people make it out to be? I don't think so. Again, when people visit from out of state, and I mentioned, some of the things, or they bring up things that they've read about Rutland online, and then they see it firsthand. They're like, what are people talking about? You don't see it. Not to the extent that you see it in other cities. Obviously, we have issues. We would like to keep working on them. But I think there's a wide range of things that we need to do as the board. Supporting law enforcement, that's been brought up. We've been working on the new contract with the police union, working on housing, anything we can do to stimulate more housing development, getting out of the way of that, encouraging people who have vacant spaces to get them back online. I think that's helpful. And then, the services that we just talked about, trying to find ways to either support increasing services locally or getting people back to places that have service capacity or would be helpful for our city.
Thank you. Alderwoman McClure.
Thank you, Rich. Of something I didn't mention earlier that I feel important to mention now is, much like many other people in the room, I am a lifetime Rutland City resident. I left for 2-3 years for my undergraduate and had to return because of the pandemic. During my time growing up here and my time returning, I personally have never felt unsafe in Rutland City. I am a single young woman. I live alone. I live alone in an entry-level apartment at that. And I walk everywhere. I don't drive. I have never been accosted. I have had somebody may ask me for money. I tell them, no, I don't carry cash, and I continue on. But I realize that the perspective that I have of safety is because I have had the privilege to experience other parts of the world, other parts of the country. And that is I am not going to discredit those who say that they feel unsafe within our community, but I really want to encourage people to look in the wider lens. Rutland is so much greater than the sum of its parts. There is so much good within our community. And what we need to do, what our responsibility is to do to help break this perception, is to break this negative news vacuum that has existed within our community for so long. We have seen negative news story after negative news story come out about Rutland, and so little of the positive that is here uplifted. It's our job as elected officials who represent this community to represent it positively.
Thank you. Alderwoman Savage, same
Thank
question?
you. I don't want to pick on Burlington, but I'm going to for a minute. My husband and I happened to find ourselves there on the day that they were having the big parade for their soccer team, and we parked near the high school, which is now in their downtown. And just driving in and driving through, I was amazed at how many boarded up buildings there were. There was graffiti everywhere. There was garbage in the streets. It gave me a whole different perspective on Rutland. Crime in Vermont is not a singular Rutland problem. It is it's pervasive in all of New England and in every small town. Rutland, I think, is on its way to break that news cycle with wonderful things like the Winterfest and, people sliding down Center Street in the night on the TV. And we need to continue to bring events here. We need to continue to have a good news cycle with the things that we are doing, and we need to talk about effectively the things that we are doing in Rutland City. We need to support our first responders, which we as a board have continued to do on an unwavering basis. And we just need to get the good news out there that Rutland County, Rutland City is a great place to be, great place to raise a family with lots of opportunity.
Thank you. Alderman Adams.
Boy, I hate the word perception. I'm really sick of hearing it in government. I am. They say we have a problem with the perception of crime. Drop the perception. The problem is you think there's a perception problem. The problem is the problem. The problem is crime. The best way to fix the problem, or the perception of the problem, is to go after the crime. The best way to give yourself a good reputation is to be the things that you want to be. Exist as a community that you would want to live in, and you will attract people. I mean, stop pounding money into marketing campaigns that tell people how great Rutland is. Just keep being great. You want to invest money, invest it into public safety. Let's get the police officers an equitable union contract. Let's get them the benefits that they're asking for so that they can retain and recruit new talent.
Thank you. Mr. Bruce.
Sure, thank you. We all see it. We all see it online. I might be perusing something like Reddit, and someone will say like, "Oof, Rutland." There's definitely a perception to the city. And my question for those people is, when was the last time you were here? Because this city is not what it was in 2010, or the last time these people saw it and thought that it was, some drug den. I agree fully with what's been said before as far as we need to support our police department. I know that the contracts are still ongoing, but as Alderman Adams said, we need to make sure that it's equitable so we can continue to grow the police department and continue to keep our streets safe. And I also agree that the perception is just, unfortunately, at this point, a stereotype. And I think that we are doing a great job right now by throwing these events, by beautifying our downtown, that we're showing people that it's not that anymore. Of course, we have crime. We're a city. And as Alderwoman Savage said before, it's a New England problem, right? It's the unfortunate opioid addiction, and all these other things that are going on, but it's not just a Rutland problem. It's a Vermont problem. It's a Massachusetts problem. It's a country problem here. But we need to continue on with supporting our public safety departments.
Good, thank you. Mr. Clifford, is there a question?
Thanks, Rich. I think the board needs to keep doing what they're doing as far as supporting the police department, supporting the state's attorney's office, lobbying the legislature whenever we can to help with, to try to find laws that you could actually put some teeth into. You've got, 3 former legislators running for the board right now that still have some connections that could be helpful down the road to kind of push and do whatever we need to do as far as, getting new laws, getting the laws changed. So that's pretty much all I got to say about that.
Good, thank you very much. Mr. Cooper?
Yeah, and a lot of, going back to what he's just said, a lot of this stuff comes from the legislature. I think one of the best times I ever had in Montpelier was shortly after Project Vision started. I took them to Montpelier, the chief of police, the state's attorney, everyone. We all went up there. We were in the cafeteria, handing out pamphlets to all the members of the legislature. It was amazing what the response was from other towns and cities. How do we do this? How do we do that? Well, contact Chief Baker. He'll do that for you. He'll get you started. But I think, Rutland City, to me, is still a great place to be. It's a great place to live. It's no different, again, like it's been said, than any other city. We all have our problems. Burlington certainly has theirs. But Rutland City is really, I think, well put together for the most part. We have some great things going on, active participation with the chamber, with the board of aldermen, with the mayor's office. It doesn't stop ever. It's always there and present. And I think that's best for the city.
Thank you very much. Mr. Donahue?
Yes, so when we talk about myself, personally, I want to remind everybody I love Rutland, Vermont. I'm an optimistic, glass half full guy, and everybody knows that about me. So when I talk about these issues, it's because they need to be addressed. Burlington was brought up. Right now, Burlington has a real problem. They have a crime issue, they have a drug issue, and right now it isn't a perception of Burlington any longer. They're having people that don't want to live there. They're having businesses leave Church Street. Rutland's not there yet. Rutland is a positive place. We have some amazing things going on here, amazing things. I ran the Chamber of Commerce for 21 years. I did this. I want to make sure that we don't become the next Burlington. When we talk about the issues that are going on around us, they are concerning. When I read that a family's daughter that I know that was, coming out of work after a restaurant and started her car and the car was stolen within 10 minutes. I mean, come on. There's a fellow that was washing his truck right out back here on a regular, in the car wash, a regular guy from Rutland, and he was accosted in the car wash. I talked to a woman who was, afraid to go to Price Chopper because she'd been accosted there. It isn't just perception, it's the reality. So we need to get our police officers back up to speed. We are at a low of 26 officers at one point with injuries. When Matt Prouty started, we had 41. Right now, we're hitting about 33. The chief would like 39, and that's where we got to get to enforce the laws of the city of Rutland.
Thank you. Mr. Esposito?
Rutland is a great place to live, and it's one of the reasons that I came home when I did. I was hoping for that sense of community again, and was a bit disheartened to find that that sense of community is not all the way there any longer. I think in this sense, I think some of the responsibility, if not a good portion of the responsibility, lies with all of us, with Rutland citizens, and making that effort to get to know your neighbors, have a block party, do something, encourage that kind of togetherness, watch out for each other, pay attention to the elderly people that are in your neighborhood. If we stick to this together, there's really no problem that can't be solved.
All right. Thank you. Alderman Gillum.
Can you repeat the question?
I'd be happy to, yes. I want you to address the perception that violent and property crimes are a persistent problem in Rutland. What can the Board of Aldermen do to address crime and the perception that some have of Rutland?
First of all, Rutland is a good place to live. It's a good place to be. I've been here my whole life, and I've lived in great neighborhoods, and I live in a halfway decent neighborhood now. But my neighbors are working with me now, and when we see something, we say something. But back in the 70s and 80s, we had Los Toledo issues here. We've always had these issues. We met them head on. Law enforcement, the community, state's attorney's office, and the social service agencies all got together, and we finally got them out of town. The other thing we need to do is work on is cutting the demand for drugs. We need to cut the demand. That is what's happening. If there was no demand, there'd be no drugs here. So we need to work on that with the cops. And the cops are working really hard to make that happen through the state police and through the district attorney's office. There's task force all the time, and I know it's happened in my neighborhood. They've had raids and taken care of those people and got them out. So it does work, but we need to work together to make that happen. It's not just the cops. It's not just the Board of Aldermen. It's the citizens and the other agencies who are here do a group effort to deal with crime. And a lot of people are not participating or not making that happen. So when you see something, say something, because eventually they bring a case and they can prosecute.
Thank you very much. And lastly, Mrs. Grove.
Thank you. If I went off perception, I wouldn't be living here. Perception online, perception with people that were communicating around town, my husband and I wouldn't have chosen to move here. But when I was offered a job by the VNA and Hospice of the Southwest Region to be their annual fund and development manager in their philanthropy department, my husband and I took a tour around town and we started popping into different establishments, and people were very friendly. Of course, got to asking, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And once I shared our story, was welcomed with such positive statements. I'm volunteering to be a candidate for the Board of Aldermen, and I haven't lived here for even 2 years yet. Again, the community here is so important, and I too have walked around downtown a number of times. I've come in contact with some seedy individuals. I've never felt unsafe or truly at risk. Feelings are always valid, though, so for those of you out there that do feel unsafe, we hear you, we see you, but perspective is, I think, a valuable thing. I also grew up outside of Baltimore, and I have a different perspective on violence. In regards to what the Board of Aldermen could do, I read a really interesting study done by the University of Pennsylvania in regards to Philadelphia in 2021. They found that by beautifying vacant lots and down in community spaces, that there was a 15% decrease in gun-related crime violence. 12 other studies supported that as well. So when you don't have vacant or unpopulated places to do nefarious crimes, you're probably not going to have as many of them.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along, we'll start with Alderwoman McClure. What is the one thing you wish more people know about Rutland, and what is one thing you might change?
Ooh, that's a good question, Rich. One thing I wish people knew more about Rutland is how incredibly accessible our outdoor recreation is. We have such a vibrant outdoor recreation community. We have skiing, we have snowshoeing, we have snowboarding, we have mountain biking, we have the gorgeous hiking trails that exist through Pine Hill Park. We have amazing nonprofits like Come Alive Outside that are uplifting and encouraging people to be outdoors. There are so many people within our community who say, "Oh, there's nothing to do in Rutland. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. There's nowhere to shop." But we have a vibrant and bustling downtown full of small businesses. We have a robust outdoor recreation community, and there's just so much good that people don't know about because they don't know what they don't know, or they don't know where to look to find it. What I would change is that. I would love to change how people get that information. I would love to see more of an effort on the city's part to help market and broadcast this so people know that these things exist.
Good, thank you. Alderwoman Savage, same question.
Alderman McClure stole my answer. Yes, I would like to people to know that Rutland is fun. There are things to do here. You can find things to do with your family, whether you have little kids and you go to the Wonder Feet Museum, or you want to take a date out to a wonderful event at the Paramount. Whether you want to hike, bike, snowshoe, ski, it's all here. We're going to bring more of it into the city when we have the new hotel downtown, and it's going to be more of a bustling place than even it is right now. Whether you want to go to a quirky plant store or, a bookshop, we've got it. Whether you want to sit down and have tea with friends, it's here. Take a look around and see what's in your community. Get outside, walk around, and be part of it. Rutland's a great place to be.
All right, thank you. Alderman Adams.
I don't know if there's anything I wish people knew. I think people know enough about Rutland, and I like it when people come here and get to see more. I definitely have had a similar experience to others where you have friends and family come from out of town, and I've got my own little routine. You figure out what there is Friday night. If there's Friday Night Live, you're crushing it. But a little Saturday morning with the farmer's market, and then maybe a little Deer's Leap hike and evening show at the Paramount. It just, everybody has that same reaction where it's like, oh my God, this still exists in America. And it is really cool, and it's a really cool feeling just being out and about and knowing people and seeing everybody that I grew up with. And I think I just love that community aspect of it.
Okay. Mr. Bruce?
Sure. What isn't there to broadcast about this city that's very positive? It's hard to pick one thing. I heard Wonder Feet, as a father of 2 under 5, as I said earlier. That's an invaluable spot. It's a great place to go when the kids are driving you nuts. And there's incredible things there, not only for them to, play with, but to learn. As far as Alex here had just talked about routine. It's always great, as he mentioned, you have your routine on the weekend. We'll go to Last Cup Cafe, and then we'll, go walk around or, drive around downtown. It's again, I think the thing I'd like to change is really the perspective of Rutland on a whole. I still hear from people, even, friends who have moved up, north or, out of the state, who still just say, oh, well, it's just Rutland. Well, it's not just Rutland. It's really grown, and I think the people here are great. I think the community is amazing. People look after each other. People say hi to you on the streets. There's people who I've never met who will have full-blown conversations with me. I had someone the other day at Walgreens ask me about where my jacket came from, and we talked for like a good 10 minutes about North Face jackets. So, it's just an incredible place, and I think really that would be the thing I'd change, is just the whole perspective on the city.
Thank you. Mr. Clifford.
Thanks, Rich. Lived here for 66 years, and I think one of the most significant things is the sense of community that we have here. When there's, when things happen, we all seem to pull together. Neighbor helping neighbor. It's just, it's a great place to be. You could go, like Alex was touching on, you could go hiking in the woods. You're 10 minutes away from a park, or if you're hunting, you're 10 minutes away from, Wheeler Road, and, you could spend a whole day out there. Things like that, you've got local sports teams over the years, that, the rivalries that have brought people together. As far as things to change, I don't think I'd change a thing.
Thank you. Mr. Copley.
It's my turn.
Yes, sir.
The greatest thing we have in Rutland is what surrounds us. We have lakes that provide great opportunities for people to enjoy and come back to Rutland and go to the lake again tomorrow or whatever. We have wonderful mountains. And I've often told people, strangers who have asked me, what's it like living in Vermont? I said, well, you're 3 hours from Montreal, you're 4 hours from New York City, you're 3 hours from Boston. What more can you ask for? Some people live in these cities, it takes them 2.5, 3 hours to get to work. We have a great opportunity to sell our city. And it's true. People really enjoy the outdoors here. I skied forever until I got my new knee and my new back. But I think people have opportunities here to really enjoy the time and the place.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Donahue, same question.
Yeah, so I know what I want people to know about Rutland, which is that it'll be the safest community in the state of Vermont. Once we are the safest community, one of the things that I would change is that perception, I really want us to be able to decrease property taxes. We're going to be able to do that by inviting new people into Rutland and by expanding business so that the grand list grows to the point where it's not falling on just the homeowners, but it's spread out through this new invigorated economic development that this city is on the cusp of. The other thing I would point out is, this mantra we have that I think is fantastic, that Rutland welcomes, and in parentheses, Rutland welcomes everybody. The only thing I would change about that is I would say, and put a caveat, that Rutland welcomes everybody except drug dealers and gang members. But I want to be clear that, the welcoming atmosphere of Rutland is significant. And I say that as one person who has lived here their whole life, raised a family here, now raising grandkids here. This is the real deal. This is Vermont at its best. We have some amazing, amazing facilities here, as well as services. So when you want to move here, you've got water and sewer. You've got a full-time fire department. You've got a full-time police department. You have a full-time Department of Public Works. This is a great place to live. If we keep it safe and we work on our property taxes, we're going to be best in the state of Vermont, bar none.
Thank you. Mr. Esposito.
I would say that the greatest asset that Rutland has is its community. The people here, as some of the other folks have said, are exceedingly welcoming to, well, almost anyone, no drug dealers or anything. But that's the real key here, I think, is the people. And just to sort of harken back to one of the responses I gave previously, make an effort to get to know your neighbors. Make an effort to get to know other members of the community. Talk to people. Ask them about their jacket when you're at Walgreens. There's no harm in it. And if I were to change anything, I don't think there really is much to change. Just that keeping that sense of community and encouraging it amongst others, for sure.
All right. Thank you. Same question to you, Alderman Gillum.
Well, it's like baking a cake. You got to have the right ingredients. You got to have the right foundation. And all we have to do, and we are right now baking a great cake right now. The community is uplifting itself and making things happen. Because I happen to be involved in all these things that are happening and trying to push them along. All we got to do now is put the right frosting on the cake. That's how we're going to sell to the outside world. Present ourselves with, we have the best deal going on here in Rutland. We've got economic development going on. We got great schools. We got a super medical center. We've got a great police department, like the others are saying. We have great services. We have all the tools that we need to bring people here. We have a great community. We just have these little issues that we got to deal with. Crime is one of them, but if we work together and make that happen, we can solve these issues and move on. Rutland's a great place to be. I've been here my whole life. I've enjoyed it. My wife bought me a toy here for my birthday. I have an electric assist bike, and I'm getting on there and running around the city. The city is beautiful. The bike paths, we're moving around the city. I go out there every once in a while to check out what's going on, check on the neighborhoods. There's a bad house in every neighborhood, but if we work on those issues and deal with those blighted areas and put the frosting on the cake, present it to the world, I think we've got a good thing going on here.
Okay, thank you. And Mrs. Grove?
Would you mind repeating the question,
I would be
please?
happy to,
Thank
yeah.
you.
What is one thing you wish more people knew about Rutland, and what is one thing you would change?
Well, thanks to Alderman Gillum, I'm now even more hungry. I will be a broken record, and I will speak again to the community. And when we first moved here, the very first day, pulled up with a big old moving truck and started moving some boxes inside. And then my husband alerts me that there was someone we didn't know in the back of the truck. And again, perception from where I came from, that stuff was going to be gone. And then it turned out it was a neighbor across the street who we hadn't even met yet. And they were offering to assist us with moving everything inside. So growing up outside of DC, a lot of when you meet someone, when you're networking, it's what do you do? What can you do for me? And what I've found in conversations here is really the root of the conversations are people wondering how they can help you. And that is a theme that happens again and again. And Rutland it's my home. I've gone back to Maryland countless times, not countless actually, a number of times since I moved here. And when I cross that state line in Vermont, I'm home. And I'm so happy to be here. And there's one thing I could change. If you own a business and you have a Facebook page and a website and other social media, can all of your hours match up? Along with Google Business, that would be great. I know we like to close and we like to go skiing on vacation, but yes, if just those hours can match up, that'd be great.
All right, Alderman McCann.
Thank you. So something I think I've noticed that would be interesting to get in front of more people is it seems like Rutland has a little bit of an identity crisis. You know, Rutland and its neighboring towns were built on a variety of industry. And that's not necessarily our foundation anymore. And Rutland, being the urban version of what's happening with that, is struggling with a lot of the problems that we've talked about tonight. But we're so well positioned to go upward from where we are. I think we're living a Rutland Renaissance. And if you live here now or if you're looking to move here, it's a great time to be in Rutland because I really think we have so far to go upwards. And I'm looking forward to the future of this city in a really significant way. Something I think I would change if I could wave a magic wand is I mentioned, or I think I mentioned, others have mentioned too, there's vacant housing stock in the city. We've got a lot of really cool old architecture. We've got old houses that have survived time because we haven't developed the way some other urban areas have. And if we could get all of those houses back up and running, back on the market and filled with residents and families and back to their former glory, that would be spectacular. It would help address a lot of the problems we've talked about today, get those houses back up well kept and lived in and loved, and really build that community even further. And I think that's a potential for our city in real time.
Great. Thank you. And thank you all. We're just past the time we have tonight. I want to thank you all for engaging tonight, for putting yourself out there for elected office. I also want to recognize and thank again Rutland Herald, PEG TV, for doing this. Remember, town meeting is March 4th. Get out there and vote. Encourage your friends and neighbors to vote. Good night and be well.